Hi, James here. Let's talk about opportunities or missed opportunities. How open are you to recognizing opportunities? Have you ever had an opportunity show up only to recognize it after the fact? Frustrating doesn't even begin to cover it. Pardon me. When we do, what do we do when this occurs? Get in our head, get pissed off, beat yourself up. I have surely been guilty of this. And stick with me till the end. I will show you how to never miss another opportunity again. So, looking at opportunities missed, one major one for me was as a young buck working in the oil industry. I was working on drilling rigs. Every spring, we'd have the spring breakup in Canada where the ground starts to thaw. And if you didn't get your drilling rig moved in time, then you would have to wait until the ground, because it gets so soft, uh, the trucks can't move the drilling rig, and then you end up taking and having to wait out for 4 to 6 weeks for the ground to kind of firm up again, as long as it didn't rain. Anyways, I ended up working for this fellow in the city. He owned it was a blowout preventer repair business, and they did everything from small blowout preventers for little singles drilling rigs up to the big triple drilling rigs that I worked on. Anyways, I was working with this great guy from Texas. He was up, and him and I were working on this one blowout preventer, and we're up on top of it. This thing's like 30 feet in the air, and we're just kind of coming up to the end of the day and finishing working on this. And the owner of the company comes out, Al Sanders, and he looks up at me, and he had this gravelly kind of voice, and he says, "Hey, yeah, James, tomorrow when you come in, wear a suit." He spins on his heel and he walks back in the office, and I'm left on top of the blow preventer with this guy from Texas, and he looks at me and he laughs and starts laughing, and he says, "Looks like you're wearing a suit to the office in in the morning." Now, I did have a suit. I had a suit that I had for weddings and funerals, and I just really didn't like wearing suits. But the next morning I showed up and I came into work, and we had a freaking blast over the next couple of weeks. Al just said, just come into these sales meetings with me. This is with vice presidents of companies, CFOs. And he said, you just observe. So I did, but we did more bloody drinking. He would take these guys out for lunch, and by 2 in the afternoon, I had to drive because Al was like 3 parts to sheets to the wind. So, anyways, it was pretty interesting time because I got to see, oh, the easy way within which Al takes and does sales is he actually just acts with people like he's their friend. And a lot of these men that he knew were, I would say some of them were his friends, but it was just really, really interesting. So one day it's like three weeks later, I walk in the office in the morning, and Al calls me into his office, and he introduces me to this guy, like he's dressed in like a $3,000 to $5,000 suit. Like this is back in the day. Now that suit would be worth 10,000, but dressed super sharp, super nice guy. Al introduces me, and this fellow ends up asking me if he can take me for lunch. And I'm kind of like, yeah, oh, okay, sure. So we set a date, and was like whatever. The next week, I ended up going and meeting him for lunch. And this goes to opportunities missed and how you deal with it. I met him at the restaurant, walked in, sat down, and we started the small talk. And I was honestly, like, I was so incredibly intimidated by this fellow. He's probably late 30s, early 40s. He was a president of a company. I was like, honestly, a rig pig. I worked on drilling rigs. That's what they called us back in the day. They called us rig pigs. But um, I'm having small talk with them, and in the back of my head, and if anybody knows about this, we all have conversations going off in the back of our head. Oh my, am I good enough? Am I wearing the right, clothes? Am I looking good enough? It's like, oh, there's this other conversation. Oh my God, did you see how scuffed up your shoes are? Like, oh my God, he's gonna think. So I had all that stuff going on. I'm trying to be present with this guy, and he starts talking to me about he has an opportunity with this company where he wants to bring some key salespeople on, and he had been talking to Alan. Alan said, like, look, this guy that I have working for me, I brought him off a blow preventer, got him in a suit, got him downtown, and he's actually pretty good at talking to people. He's a little bit shy, and but you might want to talk to him because I know you're looking to take and bring some key people on and train them up. So this is kind of what this fellow of this company was alluding to, and I was kind of getting a little bit more in my head because I had the rig pig mentality of, whoa, I don't measure up. I'm not going to be able to do this. And but I'm trying to stay in the conversation with him. And it was when he said this to me. He said, I see a real diamond in the rough, and I'd love to help you develop your sales technique. That I just kind of went off the rails, and I don't really honestly remember anything other than having the fork in my hand, eating my food, going mm-hmm, mm-hmm, and not saying much. But honestly, it was really a blank. The rest of it, it was just, I mean, like, I don't even remember walking out. I don't remember getting in my vehicle. I remember at the end of the day, my wife saying, so how did the interview go? Like, did he offer you a job? And I literally just kind of rebuffed to my wife. I was so embarrassed that I wasn't present to an opportunity. So this brings up a really interesting question, and I want you to throw your comments in the comments section if something like that has ever happened to you, like a missed opportunity, because what I mean, for a long time, a long time, I felt guilty about that. I had an opportunity because I was in the oil industry a bunch of years later. I ended up having an opportunity to for a job interview with Halliburton Industries. Halliburton's worldwide, and somebody said, "Hey, Halliburton's hiring, and you might want to go throw your resume into the mix because with all your downhole knowledge that you have of like pressure gradients and well bores and blah blah blah." Anyways, so I did. And I remember going into that first interview, and guess what was in the back of my guess it was in the back of my head, the messed up, not interview but luncheon that I had with the president of that company. And I kept going like, stop it, go away, stop that. Has that ever happened to you guys where you just kind of like, shut up, just stop? Well, anyways, I went through the first interview, and it got called back in for the second interview, and I got called in for the third interview, just basically because I knew my stuff. I mean, I'd worked so many years on drilling rigs and knew down holes so well. Anyways, I ended up not getting the job, but it was okay. Uh, has that ever happened to you where you go into a job interview, or you go to do something work related, and you've got something that you're carrying around like a sack of dead cats, and you don't really want to show anybody, but it's like it's there, and it's there, but you're trying to hide it, and you know anyway, I love that expression about the sack of dead cats because I found that's what people do when you're having conversation, and they'll throw the sack of dead cats, and they'll go, oh, look at my sack of dead cats, my poor life. Is that ever, have you ever seen people like that? Anyways, so excuse me, how has it impacted you? How, if you have an opportunity like that, has it ever impacted you? A second opportunity I had was when I finally finished working on drilling rigs. I was my wife and I talked it over because we were wanting to have children, and as we talked over having children, I was working 3 weeks on and 3 weeks off, so I was home for 3 weeks, and we were discussing kids. And I said, I can't. I'm not going to be like my father. He was in the oil industry as well, and like he was never around. I mean, he was like an absent father. And the era that I was raised in, he was gone for like a month or two at a time, and then would come home for a week. And I just said I'm not willing to raise our kids like that when we start a family. So, anyways, the offshore drilling rig, timing was perfect. The offshore drilling rig I was working on we finished our well, did our production testing, and then the rig was towed into the harbor, and then they flew us all back to Canada. And so I got a job with and if you're American, you probably know of this company. It's called the Nutman Company. And I ended up got hired with those guys. It was super easy sales. You're carrying a basket full of nuts, literally a basket, like a wicker laundry basket, full of nuts into different businesses. And it's route sales. And they already know you're coming on a specific day during the week. And anyways, I ended up honing my sales skills in that. And it really wasn't sales skills. It was just fun. Oh my God, it was so much fun. So after I got an opportunity, I stayed with them for a year. I got another offer by a company to come to work in sales for them. So I did. And it was a couple of years later that I ended up, got home and my wife said, hey, Jim from Nutman called and he wants you to call him back. So I called him back the next day and he wanted to meet because they had something they wanted to discuss with me. So I went in and met with them. And what they offered me was to, if I was interested, they would set me up completely with a warehouse, an office, and all the product to start. And all they wanted was, I believe, 10% of the 8% or 10% of the gross, and not the net, the gross. And they would set me up, but it was to move back to the city I grew up in, which was 3 hours north of the city I'm in right now. And so I ended up saying I'd like to think about it. And I said I want to talk to my wife and talk it over with her. So I ended up getting back to them, what, 3 or 4 days later, and I declined. I was happy with what I was doing. And, you know, I was up in Edmonton years later, and I ended up meeting the guy who took that opportunity. And made a multi-million dollar company out of the opportunity that Jim and his two partners gave him. And for a long time, it kind of weighed on me that it's like, oh my God, you know, another opportunity that you missed. And and it did kind of bother me, but I wonder if there's, like, getting back to my point earlier about, if you have an opportunity that you missed, did it bother you after? Did you go into other things and that's in the background of how did I miss that opportunity? So, you know, one of the things that I learned, and my takeaway from it was, looking at it as a failure really undermines your confidence. I sure know it undermined mine. It undermined mine. And looking at it with regret was a surefire way to take a gun out of its holster, point it at your toe, and shoot yourself in the foot. Because it demoralized me in a lot of ways. And so, uh, you know, how do you recognize opportunities when they come up? By letting go of the opportunities that you missed. Because if you don't let go of the opportunities you missed, they will hold you back from recognizing the opportunities that are coming up. Letting go creates the space to have literally have those other new opportunities show up, and they will. So that's it for today. Give a big thumbs up if you got some value out of this content. Leave a comment if you would, please, and subscribe below. See you in the next video. Love you all. Bye bye.